Do you want to understand why your EFT and your EMDR might not be switching off your autoimmunity and your chronic illness? So before I healed everything, I worked out my process of compassionate self-healing. I did a lot of EFT. And so if you'd asked me a few years ago that releasing your stored emotions would be the key to switching everything off, I'd say I've done that. It doesn't work. That's not it. And I did loads of it. Now, there's a reason why it didn't work. And I want to explain it to you now, along with the anatomy of your chronic illness. And it's why my process addresses this and why it works so phenomenally well. Now, for the majority of my clients that I work with, we will be looking at the stored emotions head on. There is a very small percentage of people where that's not appropriate. The trauma is maybe too ongoing, too multifold, too various. There's too much of it. And for those kind of people, maybe their system is too overwhelmed. We look at then strengthening the nervous system. But for the vast majority of my clients, it's about addressing these stored emotions head on. What I want to explain to you is about how they sit in the body, because this is really key. So the main focus of my work is really pinning down these stored emotions into what I call emotional threads. So when emotions are stored in the body, they group together. So you can have lots of different experiences that all group together into one emotional thread. And so one of the things I often do when it's relevant with a client is we write out the whole thread. We write out all of the feelings, and these are made up of different segments of your life normally. You can imagine them almost like different knots on the thread. And what is really crucial is that although you may have a really main insult that you know of that's happened, it will be sitting tied to other insults in your life or other insults of a similar nature. And so you cannot release that big main emotion, that main energy around this major insult in your life if you haven't released all the other bits it is tied to. Now, emotional threads are really interesting because they often come in a different theme. So it might be that you have an emotional thread that's maybe around your mother wound or your father wound. And so that may be made up of lots of different things in your life, or it might be 1 or 2 years in particular. You might have a thread that's around feelings of repression and feeling suppressed. That may be lots of different elements, lots of different segments, all about this commonality, this common theme of being repressed. It might be a thread that's all based around a person. It may be all the insults that have happened from being around them. Maybe they're really narcissistic, and all of that pain, all of that difficulty is there, and it's listed throughout your entire lifespan. And maybe that makes up a whole thread. The point is that they are stored in these big groupings, in these threads. And if you don't get to everything in the thread, you can't let everything go. And so quite often with these modalities, you'll be addressing a segment of the thread, but you won't get the foundational elements that it is tied to. And so therefore you may have gone, I've done loads of work on this thing and on this thing, and I just don't feel better, and that is why. And so what my process does, which nothing else that I'm aware of does, is it looks indirectly. We basically open up and go, right, what is in the thread? We go straight to all the ages, we identify all of the elements, all of the episodes, all of the emotions around them, and then we release them in a way that is appropriate. And again, it's all targeted and individualized. So not only is your thread individualized and treated really specifically, but also how it is released is, because we're all really different, and we release emotion completely different and have different needs, and some are more sensitive than others. And so it's very, very specific and targeted, something I'm not able to do on here. The other thing of note is that the body also always has an order in which it wants to release everything. And so those threads, not only are they like, maybe, imagine them almost like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, like there's a thread here about this, there's a thread here about this, but they also come in an order. And so as we kind of open up, we know what's the first thread that we have to get to, and the body has an order in which it likes to process things. And that makes sense, because sometimes you have to heal something a bit more superficial to be able to deal with something much deeper. We're just kind of working with the natural flow of the body. It's like going with the grain rather than against it. And that is one of the reasons why what I do is so effective, and why I am now teaching the process to other people, because obviously there's only one of me, and I want as many people to be able to have this really targeted practice available to them. What I'm doing on TikTok and on Instagram is I'm basically shooting arrows out in the dark, hoping that they're going to land with the right person. But what I do with compassionate self-healing is basically the lights are on and the target's right in front of us. There's no missing the target. And that is why it's so effective, because there's no guesswork. For those that do want to train with me, you have to have either healed with compassionate self-healing with me, or have had 8 sessions with me if you're not symptomatic, and it's something that I'm offering going forward in the future. I hope this clarifies a little bit more about the process, what it is I do with compassionate self-healing, and also about the anatomy of your own illness and what I'm trying to do on here, and hopefully giving you more ideas and more understanding of how to heal yourself. I do have a crazy long waiting list, so I'm definitely not here fishing for clients. It's about really getting the message out about what it is that I do, because this is a movement that I really want to grow because it's so effective.